Hello, friends. Today, we're going to be having an educational discussion about marginalized groups. Doesn't that sound like fun? Now, for a quick content warning, this video will have discussions of transphobia, transphobic violence, and sex. And I highly recommend practicing self-care instead of continuing forward, because taking care of yourself is important. Right, Hank? Hank? Where is Hank? What is love? What is desire? What is beauty? These are questions philosophers have pondered for millennia, and yet none of them seem to hold a candle to our cultural obsession with one question in particular. But is it gay? Now, this question has many different connotations. Men seem to think everything is gay, from taking naps to wiping your own ass. If a man is capable of doing it, there's always been another man to ask, but is it gay? And one resounding scenario that brings this question up more than any other is, does dating a trans woman make me gay? This question has solidified its place in history through less than savory memes. Like this one, and this one. And we mustn't forget...
Raps are gay. Yes. Will there be transsexuals in the ethno state? Hopefully not.
So, first of all, let's break down why you should never call a trans woman a trap. It feels like something I shouldn't have to explain, but seeing as this tends to be an ongoing thing, I do feel the need to. For years, men have gotten away with brutalizing and even murdering trans women because they claimed that they were trapped by them. Either because the trans woman didn't openly disclose she was transgender, or because she did, but the man panicked over the status of his masculinity at some point during the relationship. For example, his friends finding out that he was dating a trans woman and making fun of him. In this map, the gray states are the ones where there are no laws against the gay or trans panic defense, and men could legally say that they were trapped by a trans woman while facing little to no consequences for harming her. So a lot of people playing devil's advocate are like, well, why don't trans women just disclose that they're transgender? Well, for a lot of reasons. Some women just assume the men who approach them already know that they're transgender without having the conversation. For others, it's just a weird thing to bring up. Like, when is that conversation supposed to happen? There's no guidebook for this. What are trans people supposed to do? Hi, I'm Lillian. I like long walks on the beach and also I have a dick. And once you're alone with a man, they can enact violence on you at any time. At that point, you may just want to keep your mouth shut and hope for the best. Now, in this video, I'm going to be talking about binary trans women only. Specifically, binary trans women who've been on hormones for a while. A lot of this information is only really applicable to them in the context I'm presenting it in. And because I kind of believe in meeting people where they're at, and a good chunk of my audience just learned the definition of the word transgender, I feel that this is an important, albeit uncomfortable, discussion to have. These are the 101 classes, entry-level gender stuff. That being said, if you are a trans man or non-binary person, feel free to leave a polite comment about what you think would be helpful to cover in the future. Also, I will be discussing some sexual details about trans women's bodies. I'm going to try to keep on a tightrope somewhere between educational and entertaining, but if sex is a topic that makes you uncomfortable, you may want to click off. Look, there are plenty of other YouTubers that will go into the theory and specifics of why it is indeed not gay. But I find that doesn't actually get at the root of the emotional problem. Many straight men feel that if there is a penis in the vicinity of them, the interaction must be gay. So here I am, your resident bisexual, to explain the differences to you. So I've slept with cis men, cis women, and trans women. And I can assure you with 100% certainty that the experience of sleeping with a trans woman is much more closely aligned with sleeping with a cis woman than it is with sleeping with a cis man. And I find that cis men are more likely to listen to the experience of men who sleep with trans women than they are to listen to the experience of trans women themselves. Misogyny! It's fun! And I admit, even me, a trans person who knows all the theory and accepts trans women as women, was a little skeptical of whether I would enjoy the experience. Because I still held some notion in my mind, some deep-seated transphobia, that because there was a penis in my midst, the experience would be more like my experience with men than with women. How, you may ask? Well, first, let's start with... when I have sex with a man, the experience is generally pretty unsatisfying. I'm attracted to men in the same kind of way that I'll eat plain rice if there's nothing else in the fridge. Like, yeah, that's an option, I guess. And if I'm feeling a lot of self-loathing, like, fuck it, I'll eat an entire container of plain rice to make myself feel better. Cis men smell weird. Cis men's penises smell weird. And they just sort of pump into you a few times and then roll over. They don't listen. They don't take hints. This is not true of trans women. Trans women are generally fairly feminine in presentation. And even without clothes, the experience feels very much like sleeping with a cis woman. Hormones change a lot. Trans women have breasts, their skin is soft, they smell nice, they taste nice, their hair envelops you and makes you feel warm, and God, I fucking love women so much. And our ape brains respond to that, which might be why so many men see trans women as some sort of fraudulent lure, why they feel trapped. Their brains are so trapped by the binary that they feel her presentation somehow doesn't match her genitalia. Which brings us to... Now, I consider myself a man of high standards and exceptional taste. And as a man of high standards, I consider myself a connoisseur of the feminine penis. The feminine penis really isn't much like how we think of a penis in modern culture. It somehow both is and is not a penis. Schrodinger's penis. Feminine penises are like men's penises in the same way hot dogs are like men's penises. Like, yeah, they're kind of shaped the same, and you technically could use them in the same way, but it's not recommended. The feminine penis responds to touch much more like a large clitoris. It's sensitive, and the, what's the scientific word? The jism is clear and sweet, much like a vagina's natural lubricant, where men's is thick, viscous, and has a harsh odor. So you don't get the ew. And of course, there's the mouthfeel.
Why is no one talking about the mouthfeel?
The feminine penis is softer, smoother, and doesn't get fully erect. So while the feminine penis is technically a penis, it's almost like dealing with a new organ entirely. Something that isn't a penis or a clitoris. And because it doesn't function like a man's penis, it's very easy to forget that it's a penis at all, especially when you're having a nice experience with a pretty lady. Unfortunately, we live in a world where people are trapped in binary thinking, so the thought of a penis being feminine throws them for a loop. But the feminine penis is nothing new. Transgender people have existed pretty much since people started creating identities based around gender roles, and intersex people have existed since the beginning of humanity, which means there are women out there born with both penises and vaginas. And I believe it would be an absolute stretch to tell an intersex woman that her penis wasn't feminine. Context is key, and if the penis is on a woman, it's a woman's penis. Just like if a lesbian wears a suit, she's not wearing men's clothing, she's wearing her clothing, and thus, it's a woman's clothing. And some of you may be thinking, but what about really early transition or masculine-looking trans women? Well, if butch women aren't your thing, they aren't your thing. And if a woman isn't attractive to you personally, there's no law stating you have to be attracted to her. But for some of your friends, butch women are their thing. And it's important that we break down the barriers around gender so that these men no longer feel shame for being attracted to butch or masculine women, whether those women are cis or trans. But the problem arises when men say they would never date a trans woman. That is transphobic. Because if girl dick isn't your jam, there are trans women with vaginas. If girl dick is your jam, but you really like feminine women, those girls exist too. There's no one way to be transgender. So if you find yourself attracted to a woman, then find out she's trans, you're still straight. And if you just don't think you're going to be able to vibe with girl dick, even though it's awesome, it's okay to simply say, "I'm sorry, ma'am. Thank you for your time, but I don't think this is something I want to continue. Can I pay for a cab for you?" Like, just be a fucking gentleman. It's not that hard. You're not under any obligation to sleep with anyone you don't want to. That being said, trans people know the type of people who are attracted to us. And if you ask most trans women who are attracted to them, they will by and large tell you that it's straight men. Well, and lesbians. But we'll talk about trans lesbians in a later video. There are even a subset of straight men who actively fetishize trans women. These men are often known as chasers. And in fact, when Pornhub moved videos of transgender sex workers from the gay section of their website to the straight section, viewership of transgender performers saw a steep incline in their web traffic. And if you can fetishize trans women and their bodies, you can certainly learn to respect them. Because if you're at home jerking it to trans women on your laptop while dismissing or harassing them in public, that makes you a coward. And if you're comfortable hiring a transgender sex worker, but shudder at the thought of bringing a trans woman to dinner, you're a coward. And that's a you problem, not a problem with trans women. Unfortunately, there are a lot of men out there who are cowards and can't handle the shame of being with a trans woman. And when they feel their masculinity is threatened, they lash out, which leads to...
Now, I could sit here and wax poetic about girl dick all day, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the actual consequences of perceiving sex with a trans woman as gay. As of August, at least 28 trans women have been killed in the United States, with that number being much higher worldwide. These are predominantly women of color, and more often than not, it happens because a man felt insecure about being seen or sleeping with her. This doesn't even take into consideration harassment, intimidation, and other forms of violence that don't result in death. Additionally, trans women, especially women of color, are often not believed by the police, which can leave them with very few options if they find themselves in a domestic violence situation, especially if they have not had the opportunity to establish a supportive community. And it's up to all of us to reach out and help create a safe community for trans women, because they deserve it. They deserve to be safe and loved and treated like any other lady. They deserve to have friends and family and community. They deserve to be mothers if that's what they want, and to raise their children in safe environments. They deserve to not have violence towards them as a part of their story, because they are so much more than a statistic. So if you find yourself attracted to a trans woman, take her out somewhere nice. Don't be afraid to be seen with her, because trans women are some of the funniest, most interesting, most incredible people I've ever met. And you should be proud of her and honored to be in her company, because every woman deserves to be treated like a queen, and trans women are no exception.